Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 89 of Generation GC. Moving on from Youth Authority, Good Charlotte's sixth album released in 2016. Not to be convinced with Moving On from The Young and the Hopeless. My guest today is Victoria Hathaway, and my name is Molly Hudelson once again. And as always, I am your host, as well as the producer, creator, and editor of this podcast. Last time, we had a bonus episode where we talked about Simple Plan's You Don't Mean Anything, which features Joel Madden from Simple Plan's debut album, No Pads, No Helmets, Just Balls. Our next episode will also be a bonus episode, and it's a pretty fun one that we've got planned. Victoria is a high school teacher living in New Jersey. Good Charlotte has been her favorite band since elementary school. You'll get to hear her talk about how she discovered GC, and honestly, it's such a fun story. I'm really excited for everyone to hear it. Victoria has 2 Good Charlotte tattoos and is currently planning her wedding, to which she has sent the band an invitation. I also want to say that I love having guests from all around the world and from all different backgrounds on Generation GC. If English isn't your first language, that's okay. As long as you're comfortable holding a conversation in English, you're good to go. And different backgrounds doesn't just mean location or ethnicity. That means ensuring a varied gender and sexuality representation and representing fans of different ages and fans with their own unique life experiences of any sort. I would really love so much for everyone who listens to this show to feel like they are represented. So, hey, if you're listening and you think you'd make a great guest for Generation GC, hit me up, reach out. Generation GC Pod, POD, on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or send me an email, generationgcpod@gmail.com. I also want to continue mentioning blacklivesmatters.card.co, antisemitism.card.co, and anti-asianviolenceresources.card.co. And as I have the past few weeks, I'm going to include a link for 27 meaningful ways to help Ukraine in the current conflict. Finally, Generation GC stickers are here. If you do want a sticker, there's 2 things you can do. Number 1, support the show on Anchor. Go to anchor.fm/generationgcpod and click support. All that money goes right back into helping me keep the show going and making it the best it can be. Helps me get everything from cables and cords and chargers to a laptop stand, notebook, new headphones, things like that. Number 2, you can make a charitable donation. Victoria has asked everyone today to donate to Angel Paws, which is an animal rescue in Colonia, New Jersey. They're a small organization, and everything that you donate will help the animals. It'll help cover supplies and veterinary care for the animals. It'll help operating expenses for the rescue. So if you're interested, just go to angelpaws.org and click donate. And then you're going to send me a screenshot of either your support of the show on Anchor or your charitable donation and your mailing address, and I will send you stickers. Pretty cool, right? Make sure you are keeping up with Generation GC on social media. Just stay in touch, see what's going on. And now let's get on to episode 89.
All right, so today we are talking about Moving On. This is track 12 on Youth Authority, not the song from The Young and the Hopeless. This is the final track on the regular version of the album. Track 11 is War, and if you had the deluxe version, track 13 was Rise. Interesting to note about this song, this is the second time, both actually on this album, where they had a song with the same name as another song. Moving On from The Young and the Hopeless, and then War from Greatest Remixes, which we don't really like to talk about Greatest Remixes here. But I don't know. I can't imagine another name for this song, but Victoria, do you ever think about, like, do you think the band was like consciously aware, oh yeah, we have another song with this name? like, are people going to think it's weird? They're going to get confused? Like, I just wonder what the band was thinking, like, when they wrote this song, put it on the album with this name and everything.
Right. I know that was, I remember, first listening to the album, and that was one of my thoughts. I was like, wait, this title sounds familiar. And I was like, wait, it's the same, So I'm curious. I know I always wanted to know if it was more of like a conscious decision or like, if it was signifying something greater. I'm not really sure. I'm still torn about that, honestly.
I mean, definitely there's a lot going on in this song that we're going to get into, but what just came to mind was like Blink-182 has Anthem and Anthem Part 2, and then Boxcar Racer, Tom DeLonge wrote Letters to God, and then there was an Angels and Airwaves song called Letters to God Part 2, right? But so I don't know, like, could they or should they have maybe called this like Moving On Part 2? But like, they're different songs, and I feel like they have slightly different meanings.
Right. I feel like, especially where they were in their careers when the songs came out and where they were in life in general was such a different place for them. So yeah, I could see it being a part 2 as well, though, just kind of them reflecting back on where they started and where they are now. It's a big change. So I think it could be well fitting. Either way, honestly.
The one distinction we will make is that the Young and the Hopeless track is Movin' On, MOVIN apostrophe. Yes. And this is Moving On, MOVING. But we will
a bit more formal.
Yeah, we will. So I had Nikki Perry on to talk about Moving On from the Young and the Hopeless. I mean, I had Nikki and I met many years ago shooting Good Charlotte, photographing a set, and she's just wonderful. But just, with that one, we specified in the episode title, The Young and the Hopeless. And with this one, we'll specify Youth Authority. Just like I think I even, in the headline of our notes, I specified Youth Authority. But yeah, Moving On from the Youth Authority was not a single, and it has never been played live.
I think I would love to hear it live, honestly. I really wish they would.
I would too, but like, I completely get why they haven't, because of and I don't want to like spoil too much, but like, I completely get why they haven't because of the implications of this song.
Yeah. Like, and it being the last track on the album, and like, I feel like there were so many other little things in there.
Oh yeah.
So
If I heard this song live, I would absolutely have some very scary and sad thoughts.
Yeah, same. That's a good point.
Yeah, which we'll get into all of that. But Victoria, first, like, I really want to help our guests get to know you. So the first question I like to ask everyone is, when did you first hear Good Charlotte, and what were your first thoughts on them?
So I first heard Good Charlotte when I was in elementary school. My elementary school teacher actually played them for us.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was her first year teaching. I guess she was kind of testing the waters and all that. And I heard it and I was like, wow, I love this. And, that was...
Wait, I have to ask, like, what was the context that she played GC?
So apparently way back when TRL was, going on, she was on one of the episodes where you could win a Good Charlotte detailed car, like 2003, 2004-ish. So yeah.
Wait, she won the Good Charlotte car?
She did not win it, but she was on the TRL episode. I remember she brought in like a really pixelated, recorded off a VCR version of it. But she was on it with them trying to win this like car.
I think it's the car sadly. We all know about, right? Like,
yes, it is. It's that very specific one. I know. And then from there, I was like, wow, like it was such like a random but like unique thing that it kind of just stuck.
Sure, yeah.
And I remember she would play, oh my goodness, I don't remember the first song I heard by them. It had to have been probably Lifestyles, honestly. And I remember when there would be a curse, she would like lower the volume on the little radio in the classroom. Because it was, fifth grade, so I get it.
I love
that. Yeah, it was from there and onward. It was, fifth grade, then sixth grade's middle school, and that's, like the teen angst time in life and all that. Sure. So just kind of having that going into it, it really, was a big comfort to me, having them. It was a big, still are a huge part of my life. Have really been that comfort for me for very, very long.
Yeah. Well, I do want to ask a little bit more about, finding them in fifth grade and everything, but I also have to ask everyone, have you ever seen Good Charlotte live?
Yes. Close to 10 times. I would like it to be more. So as soon as they're ready to, get back out there, I will be there. Anything on the East Coast, I will be there. But yeah, I would say probably about 10 times.
I feel like you and I must have been at some of the same shows at also being from New Jersey.
Oh, absolutely. Had to have been Sayreville, probably ones in New York, I'm assuming, probably Philly. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I love that. Well, you were just saying that, you found Good Charlotte from your 5th grade teacher. Pretty long time. I mean, we're both adults now. What music do you remember listening to before you discovered GC?
Hilary Duff. The pop queen. Truly.
The irony in that, like,
she was my queen.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
It was such a transition between the two, like it was they're so different, but Hilary Duff.
I'm sure Victoria, like, look, this show is not about any of the members of Good Charlotte's like personal relationships. That's not really relevant to what's going on, but like, I just have to ask, like, having been previously like a big Hilary Duff fan, then finding Good Charlotte, and it must have been not too long after that Joel starts dating Hilary Duff. Like, what were like, preteen, young teenagers, you thoughts on that? Was it like my worlds are colliding? This is me, great.
Like, yeah. Well, also my worlds are colliding, but like, wow, like she's so lucky. And now looking at it, they're both like, they're both such beautiful people. But I was jealous of her. I'm not gonna lie. I was jealous.
Look, yeah, you're not the only one.
And they were a great looking couple.
They were. And as our Joel and Nicole and as our Hillary and her current husband, Matthew Coma.
Absolutely.
So we both come from I'm in Philly now, but we both come from New Jersey, like Central Jersey, which definitely has a lot going on in terms of like a local music scene, especially like Asbury Park and things like that. Did you ever get involved in that local music scene?
I mean, not so much as I would have liked. I feel
Gotcha.
like once I found Good Charlotte, like from there, I kind of like linked towards other bands with like in the similar genre. So from there, locally though, not as much as I would have liked. I think I would have liked to have been involved a little more, but
sure.
There's still time.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously stuff's changing constantly with the current situation, but there's always time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Victoria, I heard from your bio that you are now a high school teacher. So I would love to know, what subject do you teach?
I teach ESL, which is English as a second language. So I have students coming, from different places in the world, and they're coming here to learn English. Usually in my district, their first language is Spanish.
Okay.
So they come in with like different levels of English. Some are just starting, some, know a little bit. But it's actually interesting because a lot of them are, especially during, COVID with virtual this, virtual that, have been learning a lot of their English through music, through streaming services. So it's really interesting to see. Yeah.
I hear about
very
people learning English through like watching TV shows. Like, I think I saw a TikTok where someone was like, my mom learned English by watching Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see
cool.
It. Because it's so, and plus with Netflix and all those things, like you can listen in your native language to whatever,
and then see like the subtitles
and then the subtitles. Yeah, it's so great.
So cool. So cool. I also have to ask, like, we've had a couple people come on that are teachers or that work with kids. And one of my favorite questions to ask is, what music do your students listen to?
Oh my, I feel like when I hear their music and they show me, I feel like I'm so outdated. Like I'm not up to date on like, the names of them. Like some of them, like, I recognize, I don't know, like Ariana Grande, Olivia Rodrigo, but some of them are so new. Like I have no idea. BTS is a big one.
Sure.
BTS for sure. But I just feel like the music that teens are into it changes, not even just like so different then and now, but just ongoing.
Constantly.
Like, it's constantly changing what's like cool and what's, so it's really interesting to see that change.
Do any of your students listen to MGK? Which I ask because she's such a big name right now, and I'm like, oh, you could like, teach them about Good Charlotte. Like that's like, a tie into like some of like our stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I could definitely talk to them because honestly, I've always even just thought about, playing them a good Charlotte song and like
Yeah.
not even being like, hey, I love them. Just be like, listen, what do you think? And then hear, their reactions. Because like, I don't know, I would be really interested to hear what they think just because, just based on what I hear them listening to now, it's,
Do you, I'm, so you're a teacher. So do you know the website Teachers Pay Teachers?
Yes.
So when I did an episode on Emotionless, I recorded this. It would have been like last January or February with Angelo Gargaro from Spinning Thoughts. In my research on Emotionless, I came across a worksheet on Teachers Pay Teachers about the song. So I spent, it was like the $3 and then I linked it in the show notes, I think, and Angelo and I like went through the questions. It was so fun.
Oh my gosh, I have to go look at that because I love taking like songs and having them analyze it. So I feel like that would be perfect.
Yeah.
I'm going to look into that.
Yeah. Well, just a couple more questions before we dive into moving on. First is, I hear you have a couple good Charlotte tattoos, so I would love to hear what those are.
I do. I have one on my wrist, which is my first tattoo, and Joel actually drew it out for me. It was Webster Hall meet and greet. The year 20, when was the last like Webster Hall?
The final Webster Hall was 2017. It went with like one of the last Webster Hall shows.
So it was probably sometime around there or a little bit before. They had a meet and greet and they wrote out some lyrics for me. And I got the heart that he drew tattooed. Cute. I just feel like the way he writes is so, unique and like it stands out. The other is like on my upper shoulder, like right at the top of my arm, shoulder area. And it's just like the GC logo with like this like vine of flowers and stuff around it.
Cute.
Yeah, I really wanted something. And my tattoo artist was like, yeah, let's do it and make it like kind of like feminine and girly looking so that it kind of blends with, whatever else you decide to add below it.
I love that.
So yeah, thank you. I'm hoping one day I get to show them, in person, at least like the heart one. Because it's been a while since I've seen them on the stage and all that.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon. I think 2022 or 2023. I'm hoping on it.
I'm hoping so too. Well, last thing before we get into the song, I hear you have your wedding coming up, and I wanted to just say congratulations and good luck. And please keep me updated and let me know if the band responds to your invite.
Yes, thank you so much. I hope they do. I was like digging for addresses online. I'm like, sometimes it's hard to tell like if it's the legit fan mail address, whatever it is. I actually have tried to find an email on their record label site as well to try to see if there's any way. Like I'm trying, So we'll see. I will keep you posted. Yeah. I hope they at least receive it and know I was thinking of them. That would be, just as great. So we'll see.
Well, I've heard that if you mail a wedding invitation to the White House, like to the president, that they send back like a card and a picture saying congratulations. So
really?
Who knows? Yeah. So who knows? Yeah. Maybe you'll get something like that. That'd be pretty sweet. I mean,
that would
nice
be
little
awesome.
What a gift.
That would be awesome. At one point I was like, I wonder if they could ever, I'm sure I could never afford it, but like, I wonder if they would ever play a wedding, even if Joe and Benji would come to acoustic, like I would die. I would love that.
Oh my God. Literal goals, right?
Yeah. I wouldn't even be able to focus on my wedding. I would just be like, oh my gosh.
Well, that would be that would be how you knew you had truly found the one if your, your fiance, your husband to be was like, yeah, let's have good Charlotte play at our wedding.
Oh, he totally would. He totally would. He has been, he has come to a couple. He didn't really listen to them before he met me, but he's been to a couple shows with me, 3 or 4 at least, I would say.
Love that. Amazing. Well, Victoria, let's get into moving on. So we connected last year about the Hold On episode. And I, reached out again, just really wanting to have you on like a full episode of the show. Why did you want to talk about moving on in particular?
So I think for me, I was so excited just in general when they, put this album out, because there had been that like time frame between like the two albums that I was like, oh, I really was really anticipating it. It had been like what, 4 or 5-ish years.
Yeah.
And in general, I love the album. I think it's awesome. And I was really too, one of the first things that stood out was, hey, wait, the track title sounds familiar. And then from there, I was like, I couldn't help it. Like, it just was like, wait, this sounds, and then from there, I was like, wait, and of course, like I made the comparisons between the two, and I don't know. I really love this one. And I think just the placement of it, like being the last track, it just fits and it works really well there.
Yeah. I will say, after I heard this song, I thought this was the end for Good Charlotte.
Yes, me too. I was so worried. And it being on the last track, I was like, wait, so what now?
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of them announcing.
Well, like, I thought, I mean, we'll continue to talk about the song, but, I thought it was my interpretation. Well, okay, let's save this for just a second. But real quick, I just want to ask, did you have any misheard lyrics from this song?
I don't think so. Are there common ones?
No, not any common, but I always like to ask because sometimes I know that sometimes I have some like funny misheard things in my head. Well, I do want to ask, what is your favorite line from the song?
Overall, I like the way the song goes itself, and I just like the way that it's repeating, we're just moving on. We're just moving on. Like, they're saying all these things and just they're kind of, we're just moving on. Like, in general, I think that's probably my favorite line of it, because it's kind of just reminding the point, like this, and this, but we're just moving on. Like, I think that is just probably my favorite.
I like that.
It just kind of chimes in the message, like,
the line that really sticks out to me is, I think this is the opening line. They say, celebrate us when we're gone and forget what we did wrong, which we're going to talk about this line in just a minute. We got to talk about this line. But let's get into what this song means, what we think it's about. I really want to hear your interpretation of the lyrics.
So, especially too, thinking about the beginning of it as well, when he's kind of mentioning like, all that I have, I gave you, my everything. Like, I'm kind of like curious, like who they are speaking about. Right. Like, it's very much so like, is this directed towards the fans? Is it directed towards, a more personal, it's not, I guess, for me to decide, but, I thought it was a very interesting line, just the way it starts out.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the beginning of the song itself is, I gave you this, I let you, so it's very like, who is this I? Is it,
Right. Is it, Joel Madden, the singer of Good Charlotte, or is it Joel Madden, the wife of Nicole Richie, or the husband of Nicole Richie? And the father of Harlow and Sparrow. Yeah. I feel I feel like there's two sort of interpretations I take from this. Number one is that you could sort of see this as about a relationship, like, all right, this isn't working. We're not going to have some like massive breakup, but we're just going to move on and live our separate lives. Definitely lines like, oh, I gave you my everything. But the primary thing that I do take from this song is that it was intended as sort of a swan song for the band. Like, hey, we had some great times. We want to do it again with this album, and we're not breaking up, dead and gone forever, but we're moving on to the next chapter in our lives, which we'll talk about what they did after in a second. But with Cardiology, the way Good Charlotte kind of ended pre-hiatus was not really on great terms. Right. So as I think about this song and this whole album, really, like, it almost feels like a way for Good Charlotte to end things on their terms, in a way, to end things on positive terms. I almost wonder if it was intended as like, hey, let's do things on our terms, right? Let's let's do this one more
right.
time.
And let's see where it goes from there. Yeah.
Right. And
yeah,
clearly it wasn't the end. Like they put out Generation RX 2019. They toured off that 2018, a little bit of 2019. Then they put out last December in late 2020, but like later 2019 and most of 2020, like they didn't do too much. I mean, they had the one acoustic, Benji and Joel, in like April 2020, but I don't know. I'm like, when this album came out, I was like, okay, so like this is it. Like I heard this song and I was like, this is it. Like they're just done. Things didn't end as well the first time. They want to come back, and instead of burning out, they want a chance to sail off into the sunset, right?
Yeah. I think I got a very similar vibe from them as well.
Yeah.
And it kind of scared me, honestly, to hear,
oh my God,
the first time I heard it, because I was like, wait, what's happening? Like, is this it? Is this like, if so, it's a beautiful, like goodbye. Yeah. Like it was so eloquent, but I was like, no, I really hope not.
Well, I mean, look, there's people I've talked to that like don't want to listen to this song because it makes them so sad, which I get it,
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know. I think number one, with this song, and two, just with the context of what they've been up to, obviously there's the pandemic, but I don't know. I think just with the context of everything and everything else they've been doing, I feel like this was sort of a signifier that it's like, yeah, we might still do the band, but it's going to be on our own terms, and it's not going to be like the only thing we do, right? Because yeah, for a lot of the years they gave GC their everything. Then now they're like, we have families, we have other creative things we're doing, other music things. I mean, Joel and I think Benji as well is doing all this like crypto and NFT stuff, which I really don't understand, but
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's very now, thinking about what you said too, I think, where they all are at in their lives compared to, when they're just starting GC. I feel like, especially when they were younger, like the touring was a lot more frequent. And now, they're, in with families, or they're married, or they're, trying other careers. And I totally don't fault them for that at all. But I think, like you're saying, like, well, the part about them doing it on their own terms, I think that's so true, because again, I can't speak. I was never, a musician or anything like that. Right. But I'm sure the pressure that could be expecting to churn out material and albums on a certain amount of time expectation could be a lot. So for these people who are now, in the next stages of their lives, with children, with families, with other, professional interests, it can be a lot. So then I think definitely the song itself could be saying, like, well, we still want to do this, but we're doing it how we want and when we want.
Yeah. I think a lot about, I've been thinking, because you're talking a lot about cardiology, right? Which like they started doing with Howard Benson, and then they scrapped not all of it. I think some of the songs I'm sure persisted when they eventually went to work again with Don Gilmore. But there's a couple songs on cardiology that like I hold really near and dear, that seem to be really sentimental. But then there's some parts on cardiology where it's like, I felt like you could kind of tell things were a little rough and they didn't feel as like personal. And especially as I think about eventually them, taking the hiatus after cardiology, I gotta imagine like that's tough to like, all right, obviously scrapping the album is tough, but they go back to Don Gilmore, someone they've worked with before. And then, I don't know, maybe they weren't in the right headspace. Maybe it was the label pressure. Like maybe it was, their management. I don't know. But they came back, they are doing cardiology. They do this album with Don Gilmore, and it doesn't sell well in the US, like at all. That's gotta like take a bit of a hit. Yeah. Especially that it was someone they had worked with and worked with really well before.
Right. And I think that too also really, I'm attributed completely to the hiatus. Again, I can't speak personally for them, but I think also too, in a way, I feel like since day one, like whenever they have a new album out, and not even just with GC, but for, you know, a lot of bands, a lot of artists, people are constantly comparing one album to the next. What does this sound like? What is this? What would you classify this one? So I feel like that for them with Cardiology was very challenging because that came, you know, after Good Morning Revival. And like, it was just, you know, they're always, oh, well, this one's more dancey. This is more punk. This is more. So I feel like that in itself also could be a huge amount of pressure and a huge expectation on shoulders.
It absolutely could. And, you know, they would always change it up, but sometimes it didn't go well. Often it didn't go well, frankly.
Yeah.
It's something I want to touch on, Victoria. So I mentioned this line, celebrate us when we're gone and forget what we did wrong. What do you think they had in mind when they said what we did wrong?
I'm kind of wondering if it was more, you know, they were talking personally about things in their lives, or if they were reflecting on their music. I mean, I'm kind of torn there because personally, just, you know, as like a Charlotte fan, I feel in their music, they can never do wrong. I'll always support them. But maybe for them personally, you know, maybe they didn't like a certain album they put out. And especially thinking about with Cardiology and after, you know, following hiatus, I don't know. Like, I'm wondering if it's, you know, referring to that because, and also too, just people always scrutinizing this and this and that about. But I don't know if I would consider it doing wrong, you know? Like, I still think it was decent.
I have two thoughts on what we did wrong. If, you know, and this, of course, this is assuming we take the song as being about, you know, the band and not a personal relationship. My first thought is that they're referencing music that they wrote that didn't go over well or that didn't connect with like the OG fans, which greatest remixes. And also possibly Cardiology. But the other interpretation I have is that what we did wrong could simply mean taking a hiatus.
Okay. I could see that as well.
Yeah. Something I thought about was, you know, a lot of bands write about, you know, in quote unquote, like the band experience, like, oh, here's what it's like being on tour and things like that. But I can't really think of any other bands that have written about, again, we're taking a certain interpretation here, but I can't really think of any other songs other bands have written about like kind of the end of their career. Can you?
Right. Yeah. Kind of thinking about it. I don't think so. Like, I feel like this really stood out because I haven't heard often.
Actually,
where they're really directly speaking about it.
Actually, one does come to mind. So Victoria, you can see in the background of my video is a Pentimento flag. So Pentimento on their first record and like it's split before that, they have a song called The Bridge, which is one of my favorite songs of all time, where they talk about like making a choice. And it's kind of like, there's a bridge over the lake. Well, do I cross this bridge? Is my solution across the bridge or is my solution at the bottom of the lake? Right? Do I keep going or do I just like sink in? And it's definitely, I think it's partially about music, but also definitely largely about mental health, and just keeping going as a person. On their next album, they have a song called My Solution is in the Lake, which, you know, the circumstances surrounding that album, I mean, like, that ended up being their last album, not intentionally, but, you know, I just think of that as an interesting follow-up, right? An interesting corollary in a sense. I think it was, I think The Bridge and My Solution is in the Lake are largely intended to be about just kind of keeping going personally, but considering the circumstances that I know Pentimento were in, like at the time of writing both of those, I think there definitely was an element of, you know, just being able to keep going as a band, right?
Right. Yeah.
In terms of backstory for this song, really the only thing I found was Benji's behind the track, which listeners, you probably remember pretty much from our other Youth Authority episodes. Benji did behind the track videos for every song on this album. But he did them on the Good Space Charlotte YouTube channel, which only has like 7,000 subscribers, and not the main Good Charlotte One Word channel, which has over 500,000 subscribers. I don't know for a fact, but if I had to guess, it's because they were independent when they put out this album, and maybe they didn't have control of the other channel at the time. That's really my only guess as to why there's like these two channels. In this behind the track, Benji says that this is a song for the fans that they have to listen to and make their own interpretation, but there's definitely some messages there.
Huh.
Which to me, like, that all but confirms a certain view of it. Like,
right.
He continues to talk about how they were never a critics band or a band that the music industry decided would be big. It was always like their fans that got them where they are.
And I think him honing in on that too could also be further linking, like, guys, look at, like, interpret it, listen, this is for you. And I think that's really nice. And it just kind of verifies who they are as a band, what they've always been.
I was just thinking about this, like, as we're like reading what Benji had said, but with that context, it almost feels like it's intended to be an apology of sorts.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that for sure. Even just certain lyrics, like, as you're saying, that really
forget what we did wrong.
Show that, like, when they say, or I never let you abandon, leave you empty-handed. Like, definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
I never want to stop doing this without you knowing why. I never want you to think, we're not still there. I never want you to think that, hey, us not playing shows or putting out music as often doesn't mean that we're not still there, that you can't still listen to the same records and get the same love from those.
Yeah. And even too, I only hope you feel the same. We gave it all. Like, it's like very much so. I could see it as kind of a fan apology.
Exactly.
Type of song.
Victoria, do you have any memories or stories that you want to share about Moving On?
So I guess just personally, when I first heard this song, I was so excited to hear the album because it had been a couple of years. And I remember I was on a bus. I know it's random. I was on a bus. I was doing a mentoring program with my college, and I was on a bus. And I was like, the first time I was hearing it, I had downloaded it on my phone. So I listened to it in its entirety. I think we were going on like a bus trip to New York or something. And by the time I got to this song, like, I was like, I was like, wait, like, what's, like, I felt like this panic in my chest because I was like, are they saying goodbye? Like, what just happened? Like, I waited and, we got this beautiful album. And then, is it? It was very much like I started this album so excited. And by the end, I was, still so happy by it, but nervous. Like, was this the last song I heard by them? Am I going to get to hear them again? So it was a combination of both. It was a very weird balance of emotions, I guess.
I just remember when this album came out, I was on Warped Tour. And when I was on Warped Tour, like, I woke up pretty much before everyone else on my bus because I wanted to be able to get ready in peace. And I didn't want to fight like 12 other people for a tiny bathroom. So it worked out. I could get ready in peace and then have like coffee and a bagel or granola bar and not have to rush through that. And I just do better if I don't have to rush in the morning. Having that time to collect myself helps me like function a lot better throughout the day.
Yes.
But I remember when this album came out, I was like, there is no way I'm going to be able to make it a whole day if I haven't listened to the whole album. So I remember I woke up even like a little extra early, like, so I could listen to the whole album. And yeah, which is kind of like a weird thing to hear for the first time. at like 7:30 in the morning or something.
Yeah. Right. And I'm sure it affected your mood for the rest of the day because it was kind of like in the air with what was going on with them. Really,
right. But it was definitely still primarily like, oh my God, I just heard a new Good Charlotte album. This is the
like, it was very much
wonderful thing ever. Yeah.
Yes. Well, yes, of course. That was always one of the most wonderful days.
Oh yeah. In terms of other Good Charlotte songs the track relates to, I mean, I'm curious if you have any that come to mind. They're obviously first record had a lot of songs about just wanting to make it big. Chronicles, they talked a lot about essentially the challenges they faced suddenly being this big band, right? And then Good Morning Revival, they talk about being in Hollywood and sort of that aspect to it. But I think this is the only time they really addressed like, oh, we might not be doing this forever, or gave. I mean, they've done a lot of songs for fans, but like for the fans, but this is like a swan song. It's kind of an apology, almost, as we were saying. I'm trying to think if like those are themes that like specifically have come up elsewhere.
I mean, like you said, there's definitely been songs like directly to the fans and all that. But now that I'm thinking about it, I think this was kind of the first in itself that it stood out, that it was a very kind of, oh, well, we're going to see where we're at. We're going to see how this goes. Like, I don't think they ever directly stated that before in their music. So it's hard to kind of connect it to the other songs because I feel like it was so different.
Yeah.
From most of their other stuff.
Yeah. Well, let's read some reviews. I will say the reviews of this album were interesting because historically Good Charlotte is not a critics band. By the way, your kitty is adorable. Listeners, Victoria's cat keeps trying to join the conversation.
Yes, he does.
Good Charlotte, like pretty much every other album, there's like a lot of bad reviews, right? And some of the albums have like mostly bad reviews, or some songs critics seem to like universally hate. This album, I feel like, got a warmer reception. If I have to guess, part of it is that just the reunion was such a big deal that anyone who chose to write about this was like a long-time Good Charlotte fan and was into it. But let's get into it. We're going to start off with alternative press. They said there was a lot of nostalgia and that's a celebration of everything the band has done. They said the bombastic War, easily the heaviest song the band have written, feels like something moodier from the Chronicles of Life and Death, while the album closing, Moving On, recalls the electro dance dalliances of Good Morning Revival. Wildly different sentiments, but all delivered with the same conviction. What do you think of that Good Morning Revival comparison? Because I have some thoughts.
I don't know if I would connect it to their Good Morning Revival. Even just the song itself, I don't know. Like, I can understand, but at the same time, like, I don't know. I feel like that song itself, when I at least first heard it, I never really made connection. I think in general, Good Morning Revival really is so different from everything else they've done that I don't really see it connecting to this song. I don't know.
No, and I mean, they're both I see where they're talking about with electronic, but that's kind of like saying like an apple is red and a cherry is red, so therefore they're the same, right? Like an apple and a cherry are
exactly
pretty different. I think also this song has such a, the nostalgia, the sentimentality is a very sharp contrast to the jaded bitterness on much of Good Morning Revival.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's continue on with some reviews. The Musical Hype gave the album 3.5 out of 5. They called this song a standard closer. May the Rock Be With You said, moving on is the perfect closer, almost a testimonial, but listen to it. It's good. Rock Seller Magazine. I mean, a lot of these outlets had a similar take on this song. Rock Seller Magazine had a similar take as some of these other outlets. Considering many didn't even expect a new album at all, that's perfectly acceptable. And if it is indeed their last album together, it's a strong way to wrap up a career that didn't always attain the kind of credibility of some of their forefathers, among them Green Day and Blink-182. Great point, by the way. What gives the record its swan song feeling lies in the lyrical content from singer Joel Madden, who drops references to the band's heyday, in addition to more or less explicitly saying they're moving on in the album's final track. Redandblack.com said that this song directly references the band's 4-year hiatus in an extremely positive light. Much of the track almost seems like an ode to the band's fan base with an apology for the break. The maturity exhibited by the band in facing criticism head on and in an encouraging manner is a clear progression for the group. The AV Club, their headline said that Good Charlotte grows old with grace, which, like, I just want to point out that the twins were like 37 when this came out, which objectively is not old. Like that's not old.
Not at all. Oh
yeah.
My goodness, no. No.
And they said that moving on, the bridge of Moving On with its stair-step strings and raw, urgent vocal delivery has unexpected grit. The Odyssey Online gave the album 4 to 4.5 out of 5, which, like, I'm kind of just like, make up your mind. I don't know. Right. Either say 4.25 out of 5 or make up your mind, or I don't know. My feelings about scores in general and reviews is like, I feel like the only scores that matter are something that's like, buy it, download it, skip it. You know, like that's really the only like score I need. I don't like, just tell me if it's worth buying. They said, okay, I know that Good Charlotte is back together at this point, but this song made me shed more tears. This song wasn't exactly moving on from the past, but it was definitely moving on from where they currently are now. Overall, the music was beautiful, the lyrics were touching, and this song makes an amazing finale for this record. Last review we will read comes from Soundsphere Mag. They mention this song's fluttering harmonies and refreshing self-awareness.
I really
sorry, go on.
Oh no, I was just going to say, so far as you've read some of these reviews, I really noticed at the same time they're all so different, but there's such kind of like a general theme that so many of them are acknowledging that growth that Good Charlotte has went through. You know, starting from where they were to where they were when they released this. And even now, I think it's so true. The growth that they've shown and their willingness to kind of put it all out on the line and acknowledge, you know, who they were, where they are now. I think it really, really shows a lot about their character, who they are as people and as a band. Yeah. And I think the reviews are realizing that. So again, if maybe necessarily they weren't ever, you know, following what the critics say or what the critics think, at the same time, these critics are then also acknowledging, well, despite this band's still thriving, they're still being themselves and it's working, which I think is always what they've been about, you know, like they're doing what's them.
Yeah. And I think that's why this record was successful and received warmly. I think part of it is just that they were just doing what felt right. And they weren't, I mean, there was on the one hand, yes, they did have Keep Swinging, which is kind of a, you know, anti-haters song, right? But they also really were just like really embracing like who they are and what they've done and where they're at and what their place is, you know?
Right. They weren't trying to be someone else for, you know, to be what anyone else expected them to sound like. And it went great. So it's, you know.
Yeah. In terms of fan comments, there was not much that I found. Nothing on songmeanings.com. I mean, that just had a lot more action with the earlier records. YouTube comments were turned off on the band's upload. I found some fan uploads, but just not really anything interesting to share. I found one Amazon review that I thought worth mentioning from a customer. Matt182 gave the album 4 out of 5 and said a solid comeback. He said, moving on finishes up in an easygoing style with lyrics about the past and looking to the future.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, Victoria, as we begin to wrap up, how has moving on held up for you over time?
I'm still thinking of it in a way as kind of like a comfort song. And especially, you know, during COVID, you know, we haven't heard as much up from the band themselves. Again,
right.
Like you said, Joel, Benji, everybody's doing their own personal things. But also, too, to just hear this once in a while, it's, you know, they'll be here soon. When they're ready, well, you know, maybe we'll get an album, maybe we'll get a song, maybe we won't. It really depends. Like you said, you know, when we had, was that 2020 with last December?
Yeah, it was
so,
December
you know,
2020, yeah.
It was, you know, just getting that. I was like, oh, yay. So I'm kind of like, just being able to listen on it. Okay, you know what? They're still here. No matter, you know, what they're pursuing, what they're doing, they're going to come back and put something out when they're ready. They're going to, you know, and I'm totally fine with that. I will be 80 years old and still supporting them and wanting to, you know, all of that. But I think in general, the song really is, like you said, apology to fans, but also just a song for the fans. And I think too that just kind of creates that personal connection that it really feels genuine. Where in other music and other bands it might not.
Yeah. I think when I first heard
I actually have a
yes.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. No, please.
So I was gonna say, when I first heard this song, I think my feelings were like, okay, this is goodbye forever. But I've been able to take it a lot more now, as realizing it's, in a way, it does feel a lot like an apology to the fans, and not solely a swan song, but like, look, we're moving on to other things, but like, we'll always still be here, even if this isn't the only thing we're doing. I've been able to take that a lot more from the song now.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see that too. Yes.
What has Good Charlotte meant to you over the years, and how has that changed?
So when I discovered them in my life, where I was, my age, all of that, I think it was a very pivotal part of life, like just becoming like a preaching type of age. So I think just when I discovered them, I can't imagine life without them. I can't, you know, like it was just such a, it's just, you think when you think about it in the grand scheme of life of it, I just so happen to have a teacher who loved them. I found them, like, it's just so crazy, the circumstances, but what I got from all of that, and, you know, all of that it has given to me, you know, a comfort over the years, always, you know, no matter, it always be them for me. Like they'll always, you know, I will always support them in whatever endeavors. They mean a lot to me. I just feel eternally grateful for what their music has given me, the comfort it's provided to me in hard times and good times. It's always been there. It's been a constant for me in my life. Yeah. So I'm so appreciative to them.
Sure. Well, do you have any last words about moving on, about Good Charlotte, or about yourself?
So I actually, about the song, have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think that when they had Moving On and now Moving On, do you think there's any significance between the way they were spelled, like the connection there?
I was just thinking about that. Possibly, if we're taking it that this is like intended as a follow-up to that song in a way, I definitely think there's something intentional or not. I mean, it's moving on with the apostrophe is like kind of casual. It's energy, and this applies like in a way like a little more maturity and grace in a sense.
Yeah.
Was it intentional? I have no idea. But
yeah, I'm so curious about that. I would love to know.
It's also possible that they were like, all right, we have written a song with, you know, essentially like a similar hook, moving on to something we wrote 14 years prior. And it's possible that they did the different spelling to signify that it's a different song. And that it wasn't necessarily intended to imply anything other than this is a different song.
that would be true as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I could see that.
Yeah. Well, Victoria, I have a Generation GC and Friends Spotify playlist. So we're going to add Moving On. I'll add those Pentimento songs I mentioned. And then I would love from you a recommendation of something you are listening to lately, which anything you're enjoying lately that's not Good Charlotte.
So right now for me, it's Elliott Smith.
Okay.
I'm really loving the song of the Waltz #1 by him.
Okay.
It's fantastic. And overall, it's from his album XO. All of it is incredible. So I would definitely recommend a listen. A little bit different sounding than Good Charlotte, for sure. A little bit of different sound, but it is fantastic.
Perfect. Well, I will totally add that. Just a couple more questions to wrap up. I like to ask my guests for a charity that they really believe in, an organization that they would want to support so that we can encourage anyone listening to donate or support this organization. What is a organization that you would like people listening to this to support?
So I am very passionate about helping animals. So a local charity for me that helps out, especially with cats, is called Angel Paws in Colonia, New Jersey. And they always are constantly looking for donations, not just only monetary, also, blankets, towels, canned food, all of that.
That's amazing. That's oh my God, I love that. I'm a big animal lover as well. It's Super Bowl Sunday as we're recording this, but I am a little more interested in the Puppy Bowl today.
Yes, me as well.
Amazing. Well, Victoria, thank you for coming on the show. If people want to keep up to you, would you want to share your social media?
Yeah, sure. My Instagram is @vhats, which I guess I could also send to you in writing so you have it. But yeah, sure.
Perfect. Sure. Victoria, thank you so much for coming on the show. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. Last time we had a bonus episode where we talked about Simple Plans, You Don't Mean Anything, featuring Joel Madden from their debut album, No Pads, No Helmets, Just Balls. Our next episode will also be a bonus episode, and it is, I think I tweeted this, that it is the most unhinged episode yet. Thank you again for tuning in. You can follow Generation GC at Generation GC Pod, POD, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also follow me, Molly, at M Hudelson, MHUDELSON, on Twitter and Instagram. Please make sure to follow and subscribe to the show wherever you listen. Please also rate and leave a review. But most importantly, tell your friends. Word of mouth is the best way to make the Generation GC fam grow. Thanks for tuning in.